The doctor slipped the folded note into my hand while my husband was buying coffee downstairs. Her eyes never left mine. "Hide this," she whispered. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the paper beneath the hospital blanket. 3 words: "Don't trust him." I slowly turned toward Ethan, the man I had married only 14 months earlier. He was standing outside my hospital room, smiling at a nurse holding the flowers he had brought me after I collapsed in my own kitchen. Just hours earlier, he had held my hand and told me I was safe. But as I looked through the glass door, I noticed something for the first time. He wasn't looking worried. He was watching my room as if he was waiting for something. And suddenly, I was afraid to go home with my own husband. My name is Sage Ortiz, and until 2 years ago, I believed loneliness was the hardest thing a woman could survive. I was wrong. The hardest thing is discovering that the person you trusted to save you from loneliness may have been the one leading you toward it. My husband William died on a cold November morning. 37 years. That was how long we had been married. 37 years of raising our daughter Olivia, paying mortgages, arguing about paint colors, celebrating birthdays, and sitting together on our back porch every evening with 2 cups of coffee. William had been the kind of man who fixed things: broken faucets, broken fences, broken hearts, including mine. When the doctors told me his heart had failed during the night, I remember standing beside his hospital bed, unable to cry. I simply stared at his wedding ring resting against the white sheet and wondered how a life could disappear so quietly. After the funeral, everyone returned to their own lives. Neighbors stopped bringing casseroles. Phone calls became less frequent. Even the sympathy cards stopped arriving. And suddenly, I found myself sitting alone in a house that felt far too large for one person. Our home outside Pittsburgh had once been full of noise. William's tools in the garage, Olivia running down the hallway, Christmas music in December. Now I could hear the clock ticking from every room. At 62 years old, silence became my new companion. Olivia wanted me to move closer to her family in Columbus. "You don't have to stay here alone, Mom." I always gave her the same answer. "This is your father's house." But the truth was more complicated. If I left, it would feel as though I had buried William twice. The first year after his death passed slowly. I stopped attending church. I stopped gardening. Some mornings I remained in my pajamas until noon because I couldn't find a reason to get dressed. My friends tried to help. One afternoon, my neighbor Carol convinced me to attend a support group for widows at the local community center. I almost didn't go. I remember sitting in the parking lot with my hands gripping the steering wheel. I felt embarrassed, ashamed, as if admitting my loneliness somehow dishonored my marriage. That was where I met Ethan Brooks. He was sitting alone in the last row, tall, gray-haired, soft-spoken. He had lost his wife to cancer 18 months earlier. At least that was the story he told. During the meeting, he barely spoke. But afterward, as people collected their coats, he walked beside me. "You look like someone who misses talking to her best friend," he said. I looked at him. "That's exactly what I miss." He nodded. "Me too." It sounds simple now, maybe even foolish, but after months of feeling invisible, having someone truly look at me felt overwhelming. Over the next few weeks, we began talking after meetings. Sometimes we sat in the parking lot for an hour. Sometimes we drank coffee. He listened when I talked about William. He never seemed jealous of my memories. He asked to see photographs. He wanted to know where William had worked, what music he loved, how we met. One evening, he told me something that made me cry. "Love doesn't end when someone dies, Sage. it simply changes shape. Nobody had said anything that kind to me in a very long time. Olivia, however, wasn't convinced. I still remember her face the first time I mentioned Ethan. "You've only known him for 2 months. We've been talking." "Mom, please be careful." I laughed. "I am 62 years old, Olivia. I'm not 16. But she didn't laugh. "What do you really know about him?" "He was married." "According to him." "He lost his wife." "According to him." Her words irritated me, perhaps because they carried some truth. I realized I knew very little about Ethan's past, but when I asked him, he always answered calmly. He had worked in sales. He had moved several times. His wife had died after a long illness. His family lived in another state. There was always an explanation, and his explanations seemed reasonable. More importantly, he made me feel alive again. For my 63rd birthday, Ethan drove me to a small restaurant overlooking the river. He brought me yellow roses because William used to buy them for me. I had never told him that. When I asked how he knew, he smiled. "You mentioned it once." Maybe I had. Maybe I hadn't. But it felt wonderful to be remembered. Months passed. He repaired a loose step on my porch. He fixed the kitchen sink. He changed the batteries in my smoke detectors. Small things. The kinds of things William used to do. Sometimes I caught myself comparing them, and then I felt guilty. No one could replace William. But perhaps I told myself life was offering me companionship, a second chance. Olivia remained distant. She came for Thanksgiving and watched Ethan carefully. Too carefully. During dinner, he helped clear dishes. He complimented her children. He brought wine. Everyone else liked him. Yet afterward, while we washed plates together, Olivia quietly asked, "Mom, does he ever talk about his family?" "Some." "Have you met anyone from his life?" "No." She dried a plate. "That worries me." I became defensive. "You're looking for problems." "Maybe because I don't want you getting hurt." I remember becoming angry. At the time, I thought she simply couldn't accept another man in my life. Now I understand that fear often looks like criticism. But I couldn't see that then. 6 months after we met, Ethan proposed. There was no elaborate dinner, no expensive ring. We were sitting on my porch watching the sunset. He took my hand. "I don't want to spend another lonely Christmas." Neither did I. I said yes. Olivia cried when I told her. Not tears of happiness. "Please slow down." "I deserve happiness." "I know." "Then why can't you support me?" She looked down. "Because I don't trust him." Those words stayed with me, but not because I believed her. I believed she was afraid of losing me. I believed Ethan was kind, gentle, patient. The truth is that lonely people often mistake relief for love. When Ethan moved into my house, he brought very little with him. A few boxes, some clothes, photographs of his late wife. At first it seemed practical. He told me he wanted a fresh start. He said my home already felt like home. And honestly, hearing that made me happy. For the first time since William died, the house wasn't silent anymore. There was another coffee cup beside mine, another voice at dinner, another person saying goodnight. I thought God had answered my prayers. I thought the worst years of my life were finally behind me. I had no idea that the man sleeping beside me would one day stand outside a hospital room while a doctor slipped me a note that simply said, "Don't trust him." And when I look back now, I realize the warning signs had already begun. I just wasn't ready to see them. If I had to choose the exact moment Ethan truly entered my life, it wasn't the day we married. It wasn't even the day he moved into my house. It was the morning he quietly took my car keys from the kitchen counter and said, "You don't need to drive today. I'll take care of everything." At the time, it felt like love. Now I understand that control rarely arrives looking dangerous. It arrives carrying groceries. It fixes broken doors. It remembers your favorite flowers. And it tells you that you deserve to rest. The first few months after our wedding were peaceful. At least they appeared to be. Ethan settled into the house quickly. He woke up early every morning and made coffee before I came downstairs. He fed the birds outside the kitchen window. He trimmed the bushes William had planted years earlier. Neighbors liked him. Church friends liked him. Even Carol, who rarely trusted anyone, once told me, "He seems devoted to you." I wanted to hear those words. I needed them, because after losing William, I had become afraid of being alone again. One rainy afternoon, I found Ethan organizing the kitchen cabinets. "You don't have to do that," I told him. He smiled. "I'm helping." He placed medications into a plastic organizer. Blood pressure pills, vitamins, calcium tablets, the supplements my doctor had recommended years earlier. "You sometimes forget these," he said. I laughed. "Only occasionally." He touched my shoulder. "I just want to make things easier." At 63, hearing someone say they wanted to take care of me felt comforting. I didn't realize that little by little my independence was quietly disappearing. First, he began paying the household bills online. "You've never liked computers." That was true. Then he started balancing the checking account. "Just to save you stress." Then he suggested putting both our names on several accounts, in case of emergencies. Again, it sounded reasonable. We were married. Married people share responsibilities. At least that's what I told myself. Olivia noticed the changes immediately. She visited one Saturday afternoon with my grandchildren. While the children played outside, she watched Ethan answer my phone. "Your mother is resting," he told someone. After he left the room, Olivia asked, "Who is that?" "I don't know." She looked surprised. "You didn't ask." I shrugged. "It probably wasn't important." She lowered her voice. "Mom, why is he answering your phone?" "Because I was busy." "And your emails? What about them?" "I sent you 3 messages last week." I frowned. "I never got them." She stared at me. "I know I sent them." That evening, after Ethan drove Olivia and the children back to their hotel, she called me. "Something feels wrong." I sighed. "You're still doing this. I'm serious. Ethan is helping me. Maybe too much." I became defensive. "He loves me." She was silent for several seconds. Then she said quietly, "I hope that's true." Over time, Ethan developed small habits that seemed harmless. He reminded me to take my medicine. He poured my tea every evening. He encouraged me to sleep longer. "You need your rest." He often told me that I worked too hard. The strange thing was that I had retired years earlier, but somehow he always spoke as if I were exhausted. And eventually, I began feeling exhausted. At first, it was occasional. I forgot appointments. I misplaced my reading glasses. I would walk into a room and forget why I had entered. Normal things. At least that's what I believed. One afternoon, I drove to the grocery store and suddenly couldn't remember where I had parked. I stood in the parking lot for almost 20 minutes. When I finally got home, I was upset. Ethan wrapped his arms around me. "It's okay." "What if something is wrong with me?" He sighed. "Sage, we're getting older." The words hurt, because somewhere deep inside, every woman fears the moment age begins stealing pieces of her. I started writing notes to myself. Appointments, passwords, shopping lists. Yet even with notes, I found myself forgetting things. One evening, Olivia called. I answered. Mom, are you okay? Of course. You sound tired. I didn't sleep well. Has your doctor checked your medications? Ethan entered the room carrying tea. He heard the conversation. After I hung up, he sat beside me. Olivia worries too much. She's my daughter. I know, but sometimes children struggle when their parents move on. I stared into my cup. Do you think she dislikes you? He hesitated. I think she's afraid of losing you. His answer seemed kind, gentle, and somehow it made me trust him more. Months passed. I stopped driving long distances because I occasionally felt dizzy. Ethan volunteered to handle errands. He picked up prescriptions. He scheduled appointments. He filled out forms. Sometimes doctors asked him questions instead of me because he seemed to know everything. I didn't object. I was tired, very tired. One afternoon, I found myself standing in the laundry room holding a towel. I couldn't remember what day it was. That frightened me. William's mother had suffered from dementia during her final years. The possibility entered my mind like a cold wind. That evening, I sat beside Ethan on the couch. What if I'm losing my memory? He took my hand. We'll handle it together. Tears filled my eyes. I don't want to become a burden. He immediately shook his head. You could never be a burden. Then he added something that comforted me. I'll always take care of you. At the time, those words felt like safety. Now they sound different, very different. The following month, Olivia came to visit again. She found me asleep in the middle of the afternoon. That had never happened before. When I woke up, she was sitting beside me. Mom, have you been sleeping all day? No. Ethan answered from the doorway. She was tired. Olivia looked at him. She never naps. People change. After dinner, I overheard them arguing quietly in the kitchen. You need to stop questioning everything, Ethan said. I'm worried about my mother. She's fine. She isn't. Their voices stopped when I entered. Olivia drove home early the next morning. Before leaving, she hugged me tightly. Too tightly. Call me if you need me. I smiled. I always do. She looked directly into my eyes. No, Mom. I mean, really call me. I laughed. You sound dramatic. She didn't laugh. 2 weeks later, I forgot my granddaughter's birthday. I had never forgotten a birthday in my entire life. When Olivia called that evening, I could hear disappointment in her voice. Mom, we waited all day. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the calendar. I had written it down. The date was circled. Yet somehow I had forgotten. After the call ended, I cried. Ethan sat beside me. It's okay. What's happening to me? He wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. Maybe we should schedule another doctor appointment. I nodded. I was beginning to fear my own mind. And once you begin doubting your memory, you begin doubting everything. The problem was that Ethan seemed to be the only person who still believed in me. Or at least, that's what I thought. Because while I was slowly losing confidence in myself, he was quietly becoming the person I trusted most. And somewhere in the middle of that trust, something far more dangerous had already begun. I just couldn't see it yet. The morning I collapsed began like every other morning. That is what frightens me the most now. There was no warning, no dramatic argument, no terrible storm outside the windows, only coffee, toast, and Ethan standing in our kitchen wearing the blue sweater I had bought him for Christmas. He smiled as he poured my tea. "You didn't sleep well again," he said. I rubbed my forehead. "I had strange dreams." "You've been stressed." That answer had become familiar. Everything was stress. Everything was age. Everything was simply part of getting older. Outside, January snow covered the backyard. The bird feeder William had built years earlier swayed in the wind. I remember staring at it through the kitchen window while Ethan placed a cup in front of me. Chamomile tea. My favorite. At least it had become my favorite after Ethan introduced it to me. "Drink," he said gently. "It'll help." I took several sips. The warmth settled into my stomach, but within 20 minutes I began feeling unusually tired. Not sleepy, heavy, as if someone had placed weights inside my body. "Ethan?" He looked up. "What is it?" "I feel strange." He walked over immediately. "Sit down." My vision blurred. The kitchen seemed to move. I tried standing, but my knees weakened. The next thing I remember was the sound of dishes breaking against the floor. Then darkness. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the kitchen floor. Ethan was kneeling beside me. His voice sounded far away. "Sage, can you hear me?" I nodded. My head hurt. The room spun. He helped me sit upright. "We're going to the hospital." "I don't need—" "Yes, you do." His voice was firm, stronger than usual, almost impatient. I remember him helping me into the car. Snow was falling. The heater was running. My eyes kept closing. "Stay awake," he said. "I'm trying." He squeezed the steering wheel. "You've been getting worse." Something about those words unsettled me. Getting worse. Had I wasn't sure anymore. The emergency room was busy. Flu season, coughing patients, bright lights, wheelchairs, nurses moving quickly through crowded hallways. Ethan checked me in. He answered questions before I could. "She's been confused. She's been forgetting things. She's been sleeping constantly." I sat quietly, because much of what he said was true. Yet hearing him describe me felt strange, as if he were introducing a woman I barely recognized. The nurse asked, "Any history of dementia?" Before I could answer, Ethan said softly, "Her mother had memory problems." That wasn't true. My mother had arthritis, not dementia. I looked toward him. He didn't notice. Or perhaps he did. Hours passed. Blood pressure, blood tests, questions. More questions. Every time a doctor entered, Ethan remained beside me. If I hesitated, he answered. If I forgot something, he filled in the details. At first, I felt grateful. Later, I began feeling invisible. One young nurse asked me directly, "Mrs. Ortiz, how long have these symptoms been happening?" I opened my mouth. Ethan answered, "Several months." The nurse glanced at him, then back at me. "And what do you think?" Nobody had asked me that in a long time. I hesitated. "I don't know." Because I truly didn't. Around noon, a woman entered the room. Dark hair, calm eyes. Her name tag read Dr. Natalie Reed. She introduced herself and sat beside my bed. Unlike everyone else, she spoke directly to me. "Mrs. Ortiz, tell me what happened." I began explaining. The dizziness, the fatigue, the memory problems. Ethan interrupted several times. Natalie listened carefully. Then she asked something unexpected. "When did the memory issues begin?" I looked upward, trying to remember. "Maybe 6 months?" And before that, I was fine. She nodded slowly. Any medication changes? Ethan answered immediately. No. She wrote something down. Any supplements? Just vitamins. She looked toward me. Who manages your medications? Ethan does. The room became quiet, very quiet. She continued asking questions no one else had asked. What time did symptoms occur? Did they happen every day? Did they become worse after meals? Did I live alone? Did I drive? Was I afraid of falling? For the first time in months, someone seemed interested in my answers. After nearly 20 minutes, she stood. We're going to run additional tests. Ethan frowned. Is that necessary? I think so. He folded his arms. Her doctor already thinks it may be early cognitive decline. Natalie looked directly at him. I'd still like to investigate. Something passed between them. Very brief, but I felt it. A tension. When she left the room, Ethan sighed. Doctors always order unnecessary tests. I didn't answer. For the first time that day, I found myself thinking about Olivia. She had asked so many questions I never wanted to hear. Questions I had defended Ethan against. My phone buzzed. Olivia. Ethan picked it up. I'll call her later. No, I said quietly. He looked surprised. I'm tired. I want to answer. He handed me the phone. Olivia's voice sounded worried. Mom. I'm okay. Where are you? The hospital. There was silence. Then, what happened? I looked toward Ethan. He was watching me. I fainted. Do you need me to come? Ethan spoke from across the room. She's fine. Olivia ignored him. Mom? I swallowed. No, I'm okay. After the call ended, Ethan sat beside me. You don't want her worrying. I nodded, but inside, something felt wrong. Late that afternoon, a nurse came to draw additional blood. After she left, Ethan checked his phone. I need to make a call. He kissed my forehead. I'll only be a few minutes. The moment the door closed, Dr. Natalie Reed returned. She looked into the hallway before entering. Then, she closed the door. Her expression had changed. No longer simply professional. Now she seemed concerned. Good, she said quietly. He's gone. I felt my heart begin to race. Is something wrong? She sat beside me. I need to ask you something. Okay. Do you always take medications prepared by your husband? I frowned. Usually. Do you ever handle them yourself? No. She studied my face. Have you noticed symptoms becoming worse after eating or drinking? I thought about the evening tea, the afternoon exhaustion, the dizziness, the sleeping. I don't know. She reached into her coat pocket. Her voice became even softer. Mrs. Ortiz, I don't want to alarm you. My hands began trembling. What is it? She glanced toward the hallway again. Then she folded a small piece of paper and placed it in my hand. Don't open it until he's gone. I stared at her. Doctor, you need to trust your instincts. My breathing became shallow. What are you saying? She stood. We're still waiting for tests. Then she looked directly into my eyes, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, Please be careful. A few seconds later, the door opened. Ethan returned carrying coffee. Natalie smiled professionally. We'll have results later. After she left, Ethan sat beside me. You look pale. I nodded. Because inside my clenched fist, hidden beneath the hospital blanket, was the folded piece of paper. And for the first time since I had met my husband, I was afraid of him. I waited until Ethan stepped into the hallway before I opened the paper. My hands were trembling so badly that I almost dropped it. 3 words. Don't trust him. Nothing more. No explanation. No signature. No warning about medicine. No mention of danger. Only those 3 words. I quickly folded the note and slipped it beneath the blanket as the door opened. Ethan returned carrying 2 coffees. One for himself, one for me. I brought you something warm. For a moment, my eyes dropped to the paper cup, the lid, the steam, the dark liquid inside. Suddenly, I remembered Dr. Natalie Reed's voice. Don't open it until he's gone. I looked up. Ethan smiled, the same smile that had comforted me for more than a year. The same smile that had convinced me I wasn't alone. And for the first time, I wondered whether I actually knew the man sitting beside me. Aren't you going to drink it? He asked. My stomach hurts. You should have something. I'm not hungry. A brief shadow crossed his face, only for a second. Then he smiled again. Whenever you're ready. He placed the coffee beside my bed. I couldn't stop staring at it. Hours passed. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped softly. Outside my window, evening snow began falling over the parking lot. Ethan remained beside me almost the entire time. He answered phone calls, texted someone, read news articles on his tablet. But every few minutes, he looked toward me, watching, waiting. At one point, he reached for my hand. You scared me today. I swallowed. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. He squeezed my fingers. I don't know what I'd do without you. Normally, those words would have comforted me. Now they made my stomach tighten, because I could still feel the folded paper hidden inside the pocket of my hospital gown. Shortly before dinner, Dr. Reed returned. She carried a tablet and several lab papers. Ethan immediately stood. What did the test show? She looked at him. Some results are still pending. Is it dementia? No. The answer came quickly, too quickly. I noticed Ethan's expression change, only slightly, almost disappointment. Perhaps I imagined it, perhaps not. Dr. Reed turned toward me. Mrs. Ortiz, how are you feeling? Tired. Dizzy? A little. She nodded. Any nausea? Some. Ethan answered. She's had those symptoms for months. Dr. Reed looked at him. I'd like to speak with Mrs. Ortiz alone for a few minutes. The room became quiet. Ethan frowned. Why? Routine questions. I'm her husband. And she's my patient. Neither of them moved. I suddenly felt like a child sitting between arguing parents. Finally, Ethan forced a smile. Of course. He picked up his coat. I'll get something to eat. After the door closed, Dr. Reed walked toward it and made sure it had shut completely. Only then did she turn around. Her voice became softer. Has your husband ever encouraged you to stop seeing family? I blinked. What? Please answer honestly. No, but the answer felt uncertain. She waited. I thought about Olivia. The missed calls, the canceled visits, the arguments. I don't know. Does he manage your medications? Yes. All of them? Yes. She nodded. Do you know exactly what you're taking? No. The room suddenly felt colder. Dr. Reed pulled up a chair. Sage, I want you to listen carefully. My heart began racing. We found something unusual in your blood work. I stared at her. What does that mean? We're still confirming results. What kind of results? She hesitated. Have you been prescribed any sedatives? No. Sleeping medication? No. I felt my chest tighten. Why? She folded her hands together. Some substances appeared that don't match your current prescriptions. I couldn't breathe. Are you saying someone gave me something I don't know yet? But I don't know. She emphasized the words. As physicians, we have to be very careful. I looked toward the door, toward the hallway, toward where Ethan had gone. Do you think my husband... I think you need to protect yourself until we know more. Tears filled my eyes. No! Because the idea itself seemed impossible. Ethan had held me while I cried over William. He had fixed the broken porch. He had planted flowers beside the mailbox. He had kissed my forehead every night. People like that didn't poison their wives. Did they? Dr. Reed reached into her pocket. She handed me a business card. If you feel unsafe, call me. Unsafe. The word echoed inside my head. I had never used that word about my marriage. Never. A few minutes later, Ethan returned carrying soup. He seemed cheerful, almost relieved. Good news. Dr. Reed stood. We're continuing observation. Can she come home tomorrow? We'll decide in the morning. After she left, Ethan set the soup on the tray. Chicken noodle? My favorite. The smell normally would have comforted me. Instead, I heard Dr. Reed's voice. Do you know exactly what you're taking? I stared at the spoon, at the broth, at Ethan. Eat while it's warm. I'm not hungry. You need your strength. I'll eat later. His expression hardened, only briefly, but I saw it. The kindness disappeared. Something colder appeared underneath. Then it vanished. Okay. That night he insisted on staying. The hospital brought him a reclining chair. He slept beside the window. At least he appeared to sleep. I barely closed my eyes. The room was dark except for the monitor beside my bed. I could hear snow hitting the glass. Every sound seemed louder. Every movement seemed suspicious. Around midnight, I woke up. The room was quiet. The chair was empty. Ethan stood near the sink. His back faced me. He appeared to be opening something. A packet. A bottle. I couldn't tell. He turned suddenly. I closed my eyes. Several seconds passed. Then I heard footsteps. The chair creaked. Silence. My heart pounded so hard, I thought he might hear it. The next morning, I felt exhausted. Ethan looked refreshed. A nurse brought medication. Before she handed me the pills, Ethan reached for them. I'll help her. The nurse hesitated. No, thank you. She handed them directly to me. For a split second, Ethan looked irritated. Again, only briefly. But now I was watching. Really watching. And once you begin looking for something, you start seeing things you once ignored. Later that afternoon, while Ethan was downstairs speaking to insurance, my room phone rang. It was Olivia. I've been calling all day. I'm sorry. Mom, are you okay? I looked toward the empty doorway. No? Silence. Then, what happened? My voice began shaking. I don't know. What do you mean? I pulled the folded note from my pocket. 3 words. Still there. Still terrifying. I think something is wrong. With your health? I closed my eyes. No. Then what? Tears rolled down my cheeks, and for the first time, I said the words aloud. I think I'm afraid of Ethan. The line became completely silent. When Olivia finally spoke, her voice was trembling. Mom, what? I've been afraid of him for months. Before I could answer, I heard footsteps approaching my room. Heavy footsteps, Ethan's footsteps, and suddenly I realized something terrible. If Dr. Reed was right, if Olivia was right, then the most dangerous person in my life was about to walk back through that door. I hung up the phone seconds before Ethan walked back into my room. He carried a small paper bag from the hospital cafeteria and smiled as though nothing in the world had changed. But everything had changed, because now there were 3 people in my life who seemed to know something I didn't. Dr. Natalie Reed, my daughter Olivia, and perhaps somewhere deep inside me myself. Ethan set the bag on the table. They finally had blueberry muffins. Normally, I would have smiled. Instead, I found myself studying him. His hands, his eyes, the way he removed his coat, the way he looked directly at me. For over a year, I had looked at Ethan through the eyes of a lonely woman. Now I was looking at him through the eyes of a frightened one. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm tired." "You've been sleeping poorly." He sat beside me. "Did Olivia call again?" My heart skipped. "Yes." "What did she want?" "She was worried." He sighed. "She's always worried." There was irritation in his voice, a slight edge I had heard before but never paid attention to. I remembered all the times Olivia had tried to visit, the canceled dinners, the arguments, the tension. Had I misunderstood everything? That evening, Dr. Reed returned after Ethan left to speak with the insurance office. She closed the door behind her. "Did you speak with your daughter?" I nodded. "I told her I'm scared." "Good." I stared at her. "Please tell me the truth." She pulled her chair closer. The preliminary blood work showed traces of a sedative. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What kind?" "A medication usually prescribed for anxiety or sleep disorders." "I've never taken anything like that." "I know." "Could the hospital have made a mistake?" "Possibly. But I don't believe this is simply age-related memory loss." My breathing became shallow. "What does that mean?" She lowered her voice. "I've seen situations involving elder abuse." The words hit me like ice water. "No. Sometimes a spouse or caregiver slowly gains control." I shook my head. "Ethan loves me." She didn't argue. She didn't tell me I was wrong. Instead, she asked a question. "When was the last time you handled your own medications?" I tried to remember. Weeks, months, I wasn't sure. "When was the last time you filled your own prescriptions?" Again, I didn't know. "When was the last time you looked at your bank account?" I blinked. "I don't." The answer stopped in my throat, because suddenly I realized something terrifying. I didn't know. I genuinely didn't know. Dr. Reed nodded slowly. "Sage, none of this proves anything." "Then why the note?" She looked toward the hallway. "Because I was concerned." My eyes filled with tears. "What if you're wrong? Then you'll have been careful. And if you're right," she was quiet, long enough for me to understand the answer. Later that evening, a nurse brought my evening medications, 3 pills, a small cup of water. Ethan reached for them. I'll help her. The nurse smiled politely. Hospital policy. She handed them directly to me. I looked at the pills. 2 were familiar, 1 was not. What is this? The nurse checked the chart. Blood pressure medication. Ethan answered quickly. She takes that. The nurse nodded and left. I stared at the pills. For the first time in months, I read every label, every dosage, every name. Ethan watched me. What? Nothing. You've never checked before. I swallowed. I guess I should. He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. That night he stayed in the room again. The hospital chair creaked every time he moved. I lay awake, pretending to sleep. Around 2 in the morning, I opened my eyes slightly. Ethan was sitting up. Not sleeping, just watching me. The blue light from the monitor illuminated his face. His expression was impossible to read. Not angry, not worried, simply watching. When he noticed me move, he smiled. Can't sleep? No. You need rest. I know. He stood and walked toward me. I'll ask for something to help you sleep. No. The answer came too quickly. He stopped. Why not? I don't want it. He studied me. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he nodded. Okay. But his eyes remained on me long after he returned to the chair. The next morning, I finally called Olivia again. I waited until Ethan went downstairs for breakfast. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. Mom, I need to ask you something. Anything. When did you start worrying about Ethan? She was quiet. A long time ago. Why didn't you tell me? I tried. I closed my eyes. Images flooded back. Her questions, her concerns, the arguments. I thought you were jealous. I wasn't jealous. Her voice broke. I was scared. I wiped tears from my eyes. What did you see? She hesitated. Do you remember my birthday dinner? Yes. He answered your phone 3 times. I remembered. He told people you were resting. He deleted one of my messages. What? I sent you pictures of the children. I sat silently. He told me you didn't want company. No. He told me you needed space. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I never said that. I know. For the first time, I began seeing the missing months. Not as forgetfulness, not as aging, but as separation. Slow, careful, almost invisible. Ethan hadn't needed to lock doors. He simply stood between me and everyone else. After we hung up, I stared at the window. Snow had stopped. The parking lot below was covered in white. People entered and left the hospital. Families, couples, children, normal lives. I suddenly felt trapped. At noon, Ethan returned carrying flowers. Yellow roses. William's favorite flowers to give me. My chest tightened. For years, I had believed this gesture proved how much Ethan understood me. Now I wondered something else. Had he simply learned every detail about my life so he could become exactly what I needed? He placed the flowers beside my bed. Beautiful, right? Yes. He sat down. You seem distant. I'm tired. He nodded. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. When you get home, things will feel normal again. When you get home. Not if. Not when the doctor agrees. Not when the tests return. He had already decided. And suddenly, I wasn't sure I wanted to leave the hospital with him. That afternoon, Dr. Reed entered carrying several folders. Ethan stood immediately. "Good news." She looked at both of us. "We still need additional testing." His jaw tightened. "More testing." "Yes." He crossed his arms. "How long is this going to take?" "As long as necessary." For the first time, I saw genuine anger flash across his face. Only for a moment. But it was there. After he left the room again, Dr. Reed approached my bed. "Sage?" "Yes." "Do you have someone besides your husband who can help you?" "I thought of Olivia. I thought of Michael Bennett, our old family attorney. I thought of William." And suddenly I realized something painful. For months, I had slowly handed my entire life to Ethan. My money, my medications, my appointments, my routines, my confidence, perhaps even my mind. I looked up at Dr. Reed. "My daughter." She nodded. "Call her." I took a deep breath, because for the first time I wasn't asking whether I trusted my husband. I was asking a much harder question. How much damage had already been done? The first time I truly realized how isolated I had become was when I tried to remember the last afternoon I had spent alone with my daughter. I couldn't, not because of memory loss, because it had been so long. After Dr. Reed left my room, I sat beside the hospital window, staring at the parking lot below. Cars came and went. Families hugged one another. Visitors carried flowers. Everyone seemed to belong to someone. For months, I had believed Ethan was the person who had saved me from being alone. Now I wondered if he had simply made sure I belonged only to him. My phone rested beside me. Olivia's number remained open on the screen. I finally pressed call. She answered immediately. "Mom, I need you." There was silence. Not because she was surprised, because she had apparently been waiting months to hear those words. "I'm coming." "You don't have to drive tonight." "I'm coming." "Olivia?" "I'm already getting my coat." When we ended the call, I began crying. Not loud tears, quiet ones. The kind that come when you realize someone never stopped loving you even after you pushed them away. Ethan returned 20 minutes later carrying a sandwich. "You've been sleeping." "No." He sat down. "Anything new?" I hesitated. "No." The lie tasted terrible. I had never lied to my husband before. At least not intentionally. But suddenly, every conversation felt dangerous. Every answer felt important. He studied me carefully. "You seem upset." "I'm tired. We'll go home tomorrow." Again, not if, tomorrow, as though the decision had already been made. That evening, Dr. Reed returned, after reviewing more test results. Ethan stood. "Can we leave in the morning?" She remained calm. "I'd like Mrs. Ortiz to stay another day." His smile disappeared. "Why?" "More observation." "She's stable." "I'm aware." The room grew quiet. For the first time since I had known Ethan, I saw genuine frustration in his eyes. He folded his arms. "This seems excessive." Dr. Reed looked directly at him. "I'll make that decision." After she left, Ethan paced near the window. "This hospital is milking insurance." I said nothing, because something else had caught my attention. He wasn't worried about my health. He was angry that I wasn't leaving. Late that night, Olivia arrived. I wasn't expecting her until morning. A nurse quietly opened the door. "Your daughter is here." The moment I saw her, I nearly broke apart. She rushed to my bed and hugged me. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. She was crying. I was crying. Years of mother and daughter love suddenly filled a room that had felt cold all day. Oh, Mom. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I touched her face. You drove all night. I would drive farther. Ethan stood from his chair. Olivia. His voice was polite. Too polite. She nodded. Ethan? No warmth, no affection, only distance. I think your mother needs rest, he said. Olivia looked directly at him. I'll stay a few minutes. He hesitated. I've been here all day. The words sounded almost territorial, as if he needed to remind everyone who belonged beside me. Dr. Reed entered moments later. Perfect timing. She smiled. Family visits are good medicine. Ethan forced a smile. I was just heading downstairs. After he left the room, became quiet. Olivia sat beside me. She looked exhausted, dark circles beneath her eyes, hair pulled back carelessly. She had left her family in the middle of the night because her mother had finally said she needed her. And suddenly I felt ashamed. Ashamed for all the times I had chosen Ethan's comfort over my daughter's concerns. I'm sorry, I whispered. She squeezed my hand. No. I didn't listen. You were lonely. Tears filled my eyes. I thought you hated him. She shook her head. I was afraid of him. I swallowed. Why? She looked toward the closed door. Because he never wanted me around. No. Mom, please. She took a deep breath. The first Christmas after you married him, he told me you wanted a quiet holiday. I never said that. I know. She continued. He told me you were tired. He said you didn't want visitors. He said you needed rest. Memories began returning. Canceled dinners, postponed visits, missed birthdays, conversations that never happened. I thought you were busy. I thought you were choosing him. My chest hurt. No. She wiped tears from her face. Do you know how many times I called? I couldn't answer. Do you know how many messages I sent? No. She opened her phone. Screenshots, voicemails, unanswered texts, photos of the grandchildren, birthday invitations, messages saying, Are you okay? Please call me. Mom, I'm worried. Many had never reached me. Or perhaps they had. I honestly didn't know. For the first time, I realized that my world had gradually become smaller. Not suddenly, slowly, almost invisibly, until Ethan occupied nearly every part of it. Olivia lowered her voice. There's something else. What? About 6 months ago, I came to the house while you were sleeping. I frowned. I don't remember. Ethan said you had taken medicine. Medicine? The word now frightened me. He wouldn't let me wake you. I stared at her. He said you had been confused all day. Was I? I don't know. She hesitated. But when I saw you, you looked almost unconscious. A chill moved through my body. Because 6 months ago was exactly when my memory problems had started. The dizziness, the fatigue, the sleeping, the confusion, all around the same time. Olivia reached into her purse. I brought something. She handed me an envelope. Inside were printed bank statements. I frowned. What are these? Your savings account. I haven't looked at it. I know. My heart began beating faster. Several withdrawals, several transfers. Nothing enormous. A few $1,000s, several more, repeated over months. I thought maybe you approved them. I stared at the pages. I don't remember. She looked at me carefully. Mom. The word hung between us. What if I didn't remember because I had forgotten? Or what if I didn't remember because I had never known Dr. Reed quietly entered? She sat beside us. Olivia. Doctor. Dr. Reed looked at me. I've reviewed additional information. My stomach tightened. What information? The sedative levels? Olivia immediately sat straighter. Dr. Reed spoke carefully. The amount found isn't consistent with accidental exposure. I couldn't breathe. What does that mean? It suggests repeated use. Repeated, not once, not twice, repeated. My hands began shaking. Olivia grabbed them. Mom! I looked at Dr. Reed. Are you saying someone has been giving me this? I can't make that conclusion. But I strongly advise that you do not take any medication, supplements, drinks, or food unless you know exactly where they came from. The room became silent because we all understood what she wasn't saying. Footsteps echoed outside. Heavy footsteps. Ethan. He opened the door carrying coffee. His smile froze. Olivia was sitting beside me. Dr. Reed was reviewing charts. The atmosphere had changed. He sensed it immediately. What did I miss? Nobody answered right away. And for the first time since our marriage, Ethan Brooks looked uncertain. As he stood there holding 2 cups of coffee, I noticed something I had somehow never seen before. He wasn't worried. He was calculating. And suddenly, sitting beside my daughter, I realized something else. I was no longer alone, which meant Ethan was beginning to lose the one thing he had spent months building: control. The moment Ethan realized he was no longer alone with me, something changed. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten anyone. In fact, he became kinder. And somehow, that frightened me even more. He brought extra blankets for Olivia. He offered to buy her dinner. He asked about the grandchildren. Anyone walking into the room would have seen a caring husband and a concerned stepfather. But now, I was paying attention. Very close attention. And once fear enters a marriage, every gesture begins to look different. The next morning, Ethan left early to go home and feed the dog. The moment the elevator doors closed behind him, Olivia exhaled deeply. I hate when he looks at me. I turned toward her. What do you mean? She hesitated. Like he's measuring everything? I didn't answer. Because I had begun noticing it too. The way he watched conversations, the way he studied reactions, the way he seemed to calculate before speaking. Dr. Reed arrived shortly after 9. She carried another folder. This time, she closed the blinds before sitting down. My stomach tightened immediately. What's wrong? She looked at me carefully. The toxicology report came back. Olivia sat upright. I could barely breathe. What did it say? Dr. Reed placed the papers on her lap. The sedative we found is called lorazepam. I frowned. I've never taken that. I know. Could it come from another medication? No. The room became completely silent. I heard a machine beep somewhere in the hallway. I heard my own breathing. I heard Olivia quietly crying beside me. Dr. Reed continued. The levels weren't extremely high. What does that mean? It means small doses. My voice trembled. Repeated doses. She nodded. My entire body felt cold. Over how long? It's impossible to say exactly. Months. The answer was hanging between us. Months. Maybe 6 months. Maybe longer. Suddenly, everything began connecting. The afternoon naps, the dizziness, the forgotten birthdays, the exhaustion, the confusion, the fear that I was becoming my grandmother, the fear that I was losing my mind. I covered my mouth. Oh my God! Olivia grabbed my hand. Mom! Tears spilled down my face. I thought I had dementia. Dr. Reed's voice softened. Sage, I can't tell you who administered it. But someone did. Yes, the word felt like a knife. Someone. Not illness, not aging, not memory loss. Someone. I stared toward the window. Snow had stopped. Sunlight reflected against the white parking lot. People walked outside living normal lives, and mine had suddenly become unrecognizable. Dr. Reed continued carefully. I need to ask something difficult. I nodded. Who has access to your medications? I already knew the answer. Ethan. Anyone else? No. Who prepares your tea? Ethan. Your vitamins, Ethan. Your evening medication. I looked down. Ethan. Olivia lowered her head. I began crying harder. Because the truth wasn't just frightening, it was humiliating. I had trusted him completely. I had defended him. I had pushed my daughter away for him. And now every act of care suddenly looked different. The tea, the pills, the reminders to rest, the encouragement to sleep, the constant concern. Had he been helping me or weakening me? Dr. Reed handed me tissues. Sage, this isn't your fault. I nodded, but I didn't believe it. How could I not see? How could I allow someone into my home, into my bed, into my entire life? Olivia finally spoke. What do we do? Dr. Reed folded her hands. First, Sage does not leave the hospital with him. I looked up. What? Not yet. My heart began racing. He'll ask questions. He can ask. He'll be angry. She looked directly at me. Are you afraid of him? The answer came before I could stop it. Yes. The room became quiet because I had finally said it, out loud, for the first time. Yes, I was afraid. Olivia squeezed my hand. I'm here. I nodded, but another fear had begun growing inside me. What if Ethan realized we knew? Around noon, he returned. He entered carrying flowers. Yellow roses again. My favorite, William's favorite. He smiled. You look better. I studied him, his face, his eyes, his hands. Could these hands really hurt me? Could this man who held me during nightmares slowly poison me? My mind refused to accept it, but my body had already decided. Because my heart began racing the moment he walked into the room. He kissed my forehead. Any news? Dr. Reed answered calmly. We're still running tests. He frowned. Still? Yes. He looked at me. When are they releasing you? I swallowed. I don't know. We should go home. The word home suddenly sounded terrifying. He sat beside me. You'll sleep better there. I noticed Olivia watching him, watching every movement, every expression. He looked toward her. You're staying another night? Yes. His smile returned. That's nice. But his eyes had become cold, very cold. That evening, Olivia left briefly to get food. For the first time all day, Ethan and I were alone. The silence felt heavy. He sat beside the bed. You've been quiet. I'm tired. He nodded. Is Dr. Reed worrying you? My stomach tightened. No. I think she's making this more complicated. I said nothing. He leaned slightly closer. Sage. His voice was soft, very soft. You trust me, don't you? The question froze me, because a month earlier I would have answered immediately. Of course. Now I couldn't speak. He studied my face. What did she tell you? Nothing. What did Olivia say? Nothing. The room became quiet. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled, that same familiar smile. But now I saw something behind it. Not kindness, fear. He was afraid. Not for me, for himself. That night, after he finally went home, Olivia returned. We sat together in the dark hospital room. Neither of us could sleep. Around midnight, she suddenly said, Mom? Yes. There's something I never told you. I looked toward her. She hesitated. About 4 months ago, I hired a private investigator. My heart stopped. What? I wanted to know who Ethan really was. I stared at her. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid you'd never forgive me. What did you find? She looked down. Not much. The fear in her voice frightened me. Olivia? She lifted her eyes. But enough to scare me. I felt cold all over. What do you mean? She swallowed. The man Ethan told you he was, she paused, may not actually exist. And suddenly, the hospital room felt much smaller. Because if Ethan had lied about his past, then perhaps I had never known my husband at all. I barely slept after Olivia told me she had hired a private investigator. The hospital room was dark, except for the soft glow of the monitor beside my bed. Olivia had fallen asleep in the recliner, still wearing her coat, but I remained awake. One sentence repeated itself over and over inside my head. The man Ethan told you he was may not actually exist. I stared at the ceiling. What did that even mean? His wife, his previous home, his job, his family. Had all of it been a lie? Around 3 a.m, I remembered something that suddenly made my stomach twist. I had never been inside Ethan's previous house. He had moved directly into mine. I had never met his relatives. I had never attended a family gathering. I had never spoken to his old friends. The photographs of his late wife sat in a box in our guest room, but now that I thought about it, I had rarely looked at them. Everything about Ethan's life had existed only through stories. Stories I had accepted because I wanted to believe them. Morning arrived slowly. Olivia woke first. She looked exhausted. I felt even worse. After breakfast, she sat beside me and finally told me everything. The investigator couldn't find a death certificate for Ethan's wife. I stared at her. What? He searched the county where Ethan said she died. Maybe he looked in the wrong place. He checked 3 counties. My chest tightened. No record. I looked toward the window. Snow had started falling again. Everything outside looked quiet. Inside me, nothing felt quiet anymore. What else? Olivia hesitated. He couldn't verify Ethan's previous address. He showed me pictures. I know. He said he worked in medical sales. There wasn't any employment record. My breathing became shallow. No. She lowered her eyes. The investigator said it looked like Ethan appeared only recently. I remembered the support group, the first conversation, the perfect answers, the perfect sympathy, the perfect understanding. Was any of it real? Dr. Reed arrived shortly afterward. She listened carefully while Olivia explained. Her expression became serious. Did the investigator find another name? Olivia nodded slowly. Possibly. My heart pounded. He may have used the name Daniel Harper several years ago. The room became quiet. Several years ago, where? Dr. Reed asked. Ohio. I felt cold. Very cold. Why would someone use another name? Nobody answered. Because we all knew the possibilities. Fraud, debt, crime, or something worse. Dr. Reed finally spoke. Sage, I think it's important that you do not return home alone. I swallowed. But my house... Can someone stay with you? Olivia nodded immediately. I will. But Ethan lives there. The words hung in the room. Because suddenly, my own home no longer felt like mine. That afternoon, Ethan arrived carrying flowers again. He smiled, but the moment he saw Olivia and Dr. Reed speaking together, his face changed. Only slightly, but enough. What did I miss? Dr. Reed answered calmly. We're discussing discharge plans. His eyes moved toward me. When are you coming home? I hesitated, for the first time. Every other time, I would have looked directly at him. Now I couldn't. I don't know. He sat beside me. Sage? His voice softened. We'll get through this. The words once would have comforted me. Now they frightened me. Because suddenly I wondered if he meant we'll get through this together. Or we'll get through this if you stay under my control. Later that afternoon, Olivia left briefly to call her husband. Dr. Reed was with another patient. For nearly 30 minutes, Ethan and I sat alone. He finally spoke. Your daughter doesn't like me. I stared at my blanket. She's worried. About me? I think she's worried about me. He leaned back. You trust me, don't you? Again, the same question, the same careful voice. But now it felt different, like he needed the answer, like something depended on it. I don't know. The words escaped before I could stop them. Silence. Absolute silence. Ethan looked at me. His expression didn't change, but something disappeared from his face. Perhaps kindness, perhaps patience, perhaps the mask. I see. My heart began racing. I didn't mean... No. He nodded slowly. I understand. He stood and walked toward the window. You think I've done something? I don't know. You think I've hurt you? Tears filled my eyes. I don't know. He turned around, and for the first time since our marriage, I saw anger. Not loud anger, not shouting, something colder, more dangerous. You know what happens when people get older, Sage? I stared at him. They forget. The room suddenly felt very small. They become confused. Ethan. They begin listening to everyone except the people who love them. My hands trembled. I'm scared. His expression softened immediately, too quickly, as if he realized he had shown too much. He sat beside me again. You don't need to be scared. Then why do I feel this way? He took my hand. Because they're filling your head. Your daughter. The doctor. The doctor. Not Dr. Reed. Not Natalie. The doctor. He had turned her into an enemy. Suddenly, I remembered something Olivia had once said. He always needs someone else to be the problem. That evening, after Ethan left, Olivia returned with another envelope. What is it? The investigator sent additional information. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. A woman, perhaps 70 years old, gray hair, kind eyes. I frowned. Who is she? Olivia looked uncomfortable. The investigator thinks Ethan may have known her. How? He worked for her. When? About 5 years ago. The air left my lungs. What happened to her? Olivia swallowed. She died. I stared at the photograph. How? No one knows exactly. My fingers tightened around the picture. Why are you showing me this? The answer took several seconds, because Olivia clearly didn't want to say it. The investigator said she was a widow. My heart pounded. Another widow. Another older woman. Another person living alone. I looked at the photograph again. She could have been me. The same age. The same loneliness. The same kind eyes. I suddenly felt sick. What happened to her money? Olivia looked down. Most of it disappeared before she died. The room became completely silent, because nobody needed to say the next thought. Nobody. Around midnight, I asked the nurse for permission to walk. The hallway was quiet. Machines hummed softly. Snow fell outside the windows. I stood alone near the nurse's station, and for the first time, I allowed myself to ask the question I had been avoiding. What if Ethan had chosen me, not fallen in love with me, not met me by accident, chosen me, a widow, living alone, financially comfortable, grieving, vulnerable, trusting? I suddenly remembered something William once told me years earlier. People rarely show you who they are immediately. At the time, I had laughed. Now I wished he were sitting beside me, because I had spent 14 months sharing my home with a man I no longer recognized. And tomorrow, I would have to go back to that house. The same house where I had fainted, the same kitchen, the same tea, the same medications, the same husband. Except now I knew something I hadn't known before. If Ethan had lied about his life, then the danger might be far greater than I had imagined. Because perhaps he wasn't simply hiding secrets. Perhaps Ethan Brooks wasn't even his real name. The morning I left the hospital, I felt as though I were being discharged into enemy territory. Outside my room, nurses smiled. The sun had finally returned after days of snow. People were going home. Families were embracing. Everything looked normal. Nothing inside me felt normal. Olivia stood beside my bed while I signed discharge papers. Dr. Reed reviewed my medications one final time. I want you to handle these yourself, she said. She placed the bottles directly into my hands. Not Ethan's, mine. That simple act nearly made me cry, because for months, perhaps longer, I had stopped trusting my own judgment. Dr. Reed looked at both of us. If you experience dizziness, confusion, or unusual fatigue, again, call me immediately. I nodded. Ethan stood quietly near the window. Too quietly. During the entire conversation, he barely spoke, and somehow that frightened me more than anger would have. As we prepared to leave, he finally asked, "So, we're going home?" Olivia answered before I could. I'll be staying with Mom. A silence fell over the room. Ethan turned toward her. For how long? As long as necessary. His smile returned. That same careful smile. Of course. But I saw it. The tightening of his jaw. The disappointment. The calculation. He had expected to bring me home alone. Instead, my daughter was coming with us. The drive home felt strange. Olivia drove. I sat beside her. Ethan sat in the back seat. The arrangement itself felt symbolic. For the first time in our marriage, he was no longer beside me. The house appeared exactly as I remembered. The porch, the flower beds, William's old wind chimes. Everything looked safe. Everything looked familiar. And yet, when I stepped through the front door, a chill passed through me. Because suddenly, I remembered collapsing in the kitchen. The tea, the dizziness, the floor rushing toward me. My own home no longer felt comforting. It felt like a crime scene. Olivia helped me upstairs. Ethan carried my suitcase. No one said very much. That afternoon, while Olivia unpacked medications, I walked slowly through the house. The living room, the dining room, William's workshop. Every room contained memories. But now another realization had begun to grow. Ethan had entered all of these spaces. Every drawer, every cabinet, every account, every routine. I opened the medicine cabinet in our bathroom. Most of the bottles had Ethan's handwriting on them. Morning, evening, take with food, take before bed. My hands trembled. I didn't even recognize some of the medications. Mom! Olivia appeared behind me. I don't remember these. She picked up several bottles. Neither do I. That evening, Ethan offered to make dinner. I'll cook. No, Olivia said. Her answer came too quickly. The room became quiet. Ethan looked at her. I'm perfectly capable of making dinner. I'm sure you are. He smiled. Do you think I'm going to poison your mother? The words froze the entire room. Because nobody had spoken that fear aloud, until now. Olivia slowly placed dishes onto the counter. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I looked at Ethan. His expression had changed. Not completely, but enough. The warmth was gone. The gentle husband was gone. In his place sat a man who looked tired, frustrated, cornered. I think everyone needs rest, I said quietly. Nobody argued. That night, Olivia slept in the guest room. Ethan and I shared our bedroom. For the first time in 14 months, I felt afraid lying beside my husband. The room was dark. The clock ticked. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Ethan lay quietly. Finally, he spoke. You don't trust me anymore. I stared at the ceiling. I don't know what to think. He turned toward me. They've turned you against me. No. Your daughter hates me. She loves me. He sighed. You think I hurt you? My voice trembled. I found out about the sedatives. Silence. Long silence. Then, I don't know anything about that. I turned toward him. Then explain it. I can't explain laboratory mistakes. It's not a mistake. His face hardened. You're not thinking clearly. Those words hit me like a slap, because for months I had heard similar phrases. You're tired, you're confused, you're forgetting, you're stressed. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. Every time I questioned myself, Ethan had encouraged the doubt. I sat upright. Am I confused? Sage? Am I? He remained silent. Do you think I can't make my own decisions? That's not what I said. Then what are you saying? For the first time in our marriage, Ethan raised his voice. I'm saying everyone suddenly thinks I'm a criminal. The sound shocked me, because Ethan rarely raised his voice, very rarely, and perhaps that made it more frightening. He stood from the bed. You know what happens when people get older? Again, the same sentence, the same words. They forget things. I know. They become vulnerable. I know. They begin believing people who fill their heads with nonsense. I felt tears rising. Natalie didn't fill my head. Your daughter did. No. She wants you to herself. I stared at him, because now I heard something new. Not concern, not love, possession, as if I belonged to someone, as if people were competing for me. He walked toward the dresser. You know, nobody else wanted to help you. The room became very still. What? You were alone. I couldn't breathe. You stopped going to church. He continued. You stopped seeing friends. You were miserable. Tears rolled down my cheeks. And I stayed. His voice softened. I stayed when nobody else did. I suddenly understood. He believed I owed him, for my companionship, for my loneliness, for saving me. And perhaps he truly believed it. Perhaps that made him even more dangerous. The next morning, I woke early. Ethan was gone. Downstairs, Olivia sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee. She looked pale. What happened? She looked toward the doorway. I heard him. He said you needed him. I sat down. He thinks everyone turned me against him. She nodded. Mom. What? She hesitated. I checked the office last night. What office? Ethan's desk. My heart began racing. What did you find? She slowly placed several papers on the table. Bank statements, insurance documents, property records, and there highlighted in yellow was something I had never seen before. A transfer form, my signature, nearly $70,000, transferred 6 months earlier. I stared at it. I never signed this. Olivia looked at me carefully. Are you sure? I examined the signature. It looked like mine. Almost, but something felt wrong. The date, the handwriting, the shape of the letters. Suddenly I remembered, 6 months ago, the same period my symptoms began. The same period I was sleeping all day. The same period my memory disappeared. I looked toward the stairs, toward the bedroom where Ethan still slept, and for the first time, a terrifying possibility entered my mind. What if Ethan wasn't trying to make me sick? What if he was trying to make me appear incompetent? Because if nobody believed my memory, nobody would question my signature. Nobody would question my decisions. Nobody would question where my money had gone. And suddenly I understood what Dr. Reed had been trying to tell me. This was never just about my health. This was about my life, my home, my money, my future. And upstairs, sleeping in my bed, was the man who may have been taking all of it away. I spent the entire morning staring at the transfer document. $70,000. The signature looked like mine, but something inside me refused to accept it. I had signed hundreds of documents throughout my life. Mortgage papers, insurance forms, school applications. William and I had built our entire future through signatures. And yet, this one felt wrong. Not obviously forged, not completely different, just uncertain. like a copy of my handwriting created by someone who had watched me long enough. Olivia sat beside me. Do you remember signing it? No. Anything? I closed my eyes. 6 months earlier. That was when the sleeping started, the dizziness, the confusion, the forgotten conversations. And now, according to the bank records, that was exactly when money had begun disappearing. Small amounts first, $5,000, $3,000, $8,000. Enough that I might not notice. Enough that someone could explain them away. But $70,000 was different. That wasn't an accident. That was a plan. The sound of footsteps interrupted us. Ethan entered the kitchen. He looked rested, calm, too calm. His eyes immediately dropped to the papers on the table. Nobody spoke. For several seconds, the entire room was silent. Then he said quietly, "What are those?" Olivia answered. "Bank statements." His eyes moved toward me. "Why?" I swallowed. "There are transfers I don't remember." His face remained perfectly still. For a moment, I almost admired how controlled he was. "You're asking me. I'm asking both of us." He walked toward the table. The transfer form lay between us. He picked it up. "You signed this." "I don't remember." He looked directly at me. "You were there." "When?" "6 months ago." The exact answer. No hesitation. My stomach tightened. "At the bank?" "I don't remember." He sighed. Sage. That tone again. The patient voice. The gentle correction. The voice of a man speaking to someone confused. "You've forgotten many things." Olivia immediately stood. "Don't do that." He looked at her. "Do what?" "Treat her like she's incapable." "I'm not." "Yes, you are." I watched both of them. For months, I had seen Olivia as the problem. Now I realized something. She was the only person who consistently demanded that people listen to me. Ethan lowered his voice. "I took care of her." Nobody answered, because once again he had said it. I took care of her. Not we made decisions together. Not she chose. Not we agreed. He took care of me. The ownership inside those words suddenly frightened me. Later that afternoon, Olivia suggested calling our old attorney, Michael Bennett, William's attorney, the man who had handled our wills, our house, and our retirement accounts for years. I hesitated. "What if we're wrong?" Olivia looked at me. "And what if we're not?" An hour later, Michael arrived. He had aged since William's funeral. More gray hair. Slower movements, but his eyes remained sharp. When he saw me, he smiled sadly. "Sage." "Michael." He hugged me gently. Then he noticed Ethan. The room immediately changed. Men sometimes recognize things women miss. Not facts, not evidence. Something else. An instinct. Michael extended his hand. "Ethan?" "Ethan Brooks." They shook hands, too firmly, too briefly. We sat in the living room, William's old living room, the room where he had read newspapers every morning, the room where he had died in his favorite chair. Michael reviewed the documents, the transfers, the accounts, the signatures. He said very little, which somehow made me even more nervous. Finally, he looked at me. "Do you remember approving these?" "No." He nodded. "Ethan." Ethan crossed his arms. "Sage wanted me to help." "With finances?" "Yes." "Power of attorney?" "No." Michael became quiet. "Joint accounts?" "Some." "Why?" Ethan's jaw tightened. We're married. Michael nodded. Of course. But I knew Michael. He was choosing his words carefully. After nearly an hour, he closed the folder. I'd like copies of everything. Ethan immediately spoke. Is this necessary? Michael looked directly at him. Yes. For the first time, Ethan appeared uncomfortable. Not angry, not defensive, worried. That evening, Michael asked to speak with me privately. We sat in William's old workshop. Dust covered the shelves. His tools remained exactly where he had left them. For a moment, I could almost imagine him walking through the door. Michael spoke quietly. Sage. Yes. Did William ever express concerns about remarriage? The question surprised me. No. He trusted your judgment. I smiled sadly. Maybe he shouldn't have. Michael leaned forward. I want to ask you something difficult. My chest tightened. Okay. Do you believe your husband loves you? I stared at the floor. Months ago, the answer would have been immediate. Now I didn't know. I don't know. He nodded. Do you trust him? Tears filled my eyes. No. The answer hurt, because saying it felt like bearing another marriage, another dream, another future. Michael reached into his briefcase. He removed several papers. What is that? The house. I frowned. What about it? He looked uncomfortable. Sage, approximately 4 months ago, paperwork was submitted regarding refinancing. I froze. What? The application included your signatures. I never refinanced. I know. The room suddenly became very quiet. Because $70,000 was one thing. The house was another. William's house. Our house. The house we spent 37 years paying for. My voice trembled. Was it approved? No. I closed my eyes. Thank God. Why not? Michael hesitated. The bank requested additional information. What kind? Medical information. I looked at him. Why? He lowered his voice. Because the application suggested possible cognitive impairment. The world stopped. I couldn't breathe. What? The paperwork stated that financial decisions were being assisted due to memory concerns. My hands began shaking. No. 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 Suddenly, everything connected. The memory loss, the confusion, the doctor's visits, the discussions about aging, the constant reminders that I was forgetting things. If people believed I was mentally declining, if banks believed it, if attorneys believed it, then who would question Ethan? Who would question the transfers? Who would question the signatures? Who would question the house? Tears streamed down my face. He was making me look incompetent. Michael said nothing, because he didn't need to. I finally whispered. He wanted people to think I was losing my mind. The front door opened. We heard Ethan enter the house. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Michael stood. Before leaving the workshop, he looked directly at me. Sage? Yes. Do not sign anything. I nodded. Do not take any medication you didn't open yourself. Another nod. And if you feel unsafe. He paused. You call me. After he left, I remained alone in the workshop. William's tools surrounded me. His old jacket still hung on the wall. And suddenly, I remembered something he once told me years earlier. If someone tries to convince you that you can't trust your own mind, trust your instincts instead. At the time, it had been advice about a difficult coworker. Now it felt like William speaking directly to me. That night as I climbed the stairs, I noticed the bedroom door partially open. Ethan sat alone on the edge of the bed. The room was dark. He didn't turn around. He simply said, "You spoke to the lawyer." It wasn't a question. I stopped breathing, because somehow, in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Ethan wasn't surprised. It was almost as if he had been expecting this day all along. "You spoke to the lawyer." Ethan's voice was calm, too calm. He remained seated on the edge of our bed, his back facing me. The bedroom lamp cast long shadows across the walls, and for a moment, I felt as though I had walked into a room occupied by a stranger. "Yes," I answered. He nodded. "About me." It wasn't a question. I stood near the doorway. My heart was pounding. "Michael is an old family friend." He finally turned toward me. "I know who he is." His eyes looked tired, but beneath the exhaustion was something else. Something hard. Something I had never seen before. "I suppose he thinks I'm stealing from you." I didn't answer, because at that moment, I honestly didn't know what to believe. He stood slowly. "I buried my wife." His voice became softer. "I spent years alone." He looked directly into my eyes. "And now everyone thinks I'm a criminal." Tears filled my eyes. "I don't know what happened." "I do." "What? Your daughter happened." I shook my head. "No. She never wanted me here." The argument felt familiar. We had lived this conversation dozens of times, only now I could finally see it. Every problem became Olivia. Every concern became Olivia. Every disagreement became Olivia. He had spent months making my daughter into the enemy. I sat carefully on the chair beside the window. "I found the transfer." "You signed it." "I don't remember." His jaw tightened. "You don't remember a lot of things." Again, the same words, the same knife. I looked directly at him. "Did you tell the bank I had memory problems?" Silence. Several seconds passed. Then, they asked questions. "What did you tell them?" "That you've been struggling." My breathing became shallow. "I wasn't struggling." "You fainted." "I was drugged." The room suddenly became still. He stared at me. "What did you say?" I swallowed. "The hospital found sedatives." His expression changed. Not surprise. Not exactly. More like calculation. "Doctors make mistakes." "No." "Sage?" "No." For the first time in months, perhaps years, I interrupted him. "I am not confused." His face hardened. "You don't know what's happening." "Neither do you." The silence between us felt enormous. Finally, he picked up his jacket. "I'm sleeping downstairs." He left without another word. I sat alone in the bedroom. William's photograph remained on the dresser, the same photograph that had stood there since his funeral. I picked it up. His smile, his gentle eyes, 37 years. He had never once made me question my own mind. The next morning, Michael called. "Sage, I'd like you and Olivia to come to my office." "Why? I've found something." My stomach tightened. "What?" "I'd rather discuss it in person." 2 hours later, Olivia and I sat across from him. The office looked exactly as I remembered. Wood shelves, legal books, William's old estate files, a framed photograph of Michael and William fishing together. Memories surrounded me. Michael opened a folder. "I checked several property filings." He looked toward me. "The refinancing application wasn't the only document." My chest tightened. What else? He slid papers across the desk. Power of attorney forms, medical authorization forms, financial documents, all containing my signature. My hands began shaking. I didn't sign these. I know. How? He pointed. Different dates. I stared. Many of them were days I barely remembered. Days when I had slept. Days when I had been dizzy. Days when Ethan had said I wasn't feeling well. My voice trembled. He was preparing. Michael nodded slowly. Preparing for what? He hesitated. To manage your affairs. The words made me feel sick, because suddenly I understood. The medications, the confusion, the bank, the memory concerns, the discussions about aging, the appointments. He wasn't just taking money. He was building a story in which I was becoming incapable, and he was the devoted husband stepping in to help. Olivia wiped tears from her eyes. Mom! I couldn't speak. Michael continued. I also contacted the investigator. I looked up. What did you find? He removed another file. The name Ethan Brooks doesn't appear in several public records before about 7 years ago. My heart stopped. What? There is, however, a Daniel Harper. Olivia looked toward me. The same name? Michael nodded. He lived in Ohio. I felt cold, very cold. Was he married? Michael hesitated. Not officially. Did he have a partner? Yes. I leaned forward. What happened to her? He lowered his voice. She was a widow. The room became silent. Again, another widow, another woman alone, another woman with assets. How did she die? Michael sighed. Natural causes. But shortly before her death, large sums of money were transferred. I couldn't breathe. Was he charged? No. Why not? There wasn't enough evidence. Olivia grabbed my hand. I suddenly remembered the photograph. The older woman, the kind eyes, the same loneliness, the same vulnerability. My voice barely worked. Do you think he did this before? Michael answered carefully. I think it's possible. When we returned home, Ethan was waiting, sitting in the living room, perfectly still, as though he knew exactly where we had been. Olivia immediately became tense. I could feel it. Ethan stood. How was the lawyer? Nobody answered. He looked at me. Sage, I know about the documents. His expression remained calm. I explained those. No. He said nothing. I know about Daniel Harper. For the first time since I had met him, genuine fear crossed his face. Only for a second. But I saw it. Olivia saw it. And Ethan knew we saw it. What are you talking about? Michael's words echoed in my mind. Do not sign anything. Do not trust him. Do not stay alone. I took a deep breath. Who is Daniel Harper? Silence. Long silence. He looked toward Olivia, then toward me. Finally, he smiled, but it was no longer Ethan's smile. The warm smile, the gentle smile. This one felt empty, cold. You've been digging into my past. No. I shook my head. We've been trying to understand the truth. He stared at me, and then he said something that chilled me to my bones. You should be very careful about who you trust. The room became perfectly still, because those were almost the exact words written on Dr. Reed's note. Don't trust him. And suddenly, I realized something terrifying. Ethan no longer seemed afraid of being discovered. He seemed angry that we had discovered him too late. The house became quiet after Ethan's warning. You should be very careful about who you trust. Those words followed me through the evening. They echoed inside the kitchen, inside the hallway, inside the bedroom where I no longer felt safe. Olivia stayed beside me almost constantly now. Even when she prepared dinner, she kept the kitchen door open. Neither of us said it aloud, but we were both afraid to leave me alone. Ethan strangely became calmer. Too calm. He made coffee. He watched television. He read newspapers. He acted exactly like a husband whose wife had suddenly become suspicious for no reason. And that frightened me more than anger would have. The next morning, I woke early. The house was still dark. I walked quietly downstairs. For years, I had started my mornings in this kitchen. First with William, then alone, then with Ethan. Now, every object seemed different. The tea kettle, the medicine drawer, the cabinet where Ethan kept the vitamins. I opened it. Several bottles stood inside. Calcium, vitamin D, sleep supplements, blood pressure medication. I picked up one of the vitamin containers. The seal had been broken. I opened it. The capsules looked ordinary, but now I trusted nothing. I placed the bottle into a plastic bag, then another, and another. When Olivia came downstairs, she found me sitting at the table. What are you doing? I'm keeping these, she nodded. For Dr. Reed. Yes, neither of us wanted to say the real reason. Evidence. The word hung silently between us. Around 10 o'clock, Michael called. Sage, I need to see you. What happened? The investigator found someone. My chest tightened. Who? The woman from Ohio. I stopped breathing. She's alive. Yes. I nearly dropped the phone. Alive. Her name is Margaret Dawson. My legs weakened. The woman from the photograph. The widow. The woman Ethan may have known years earlier. She was alive. Can I speak with her? There was silence. I think you should. That afternoon, Olivia drove me to Michael's office. My hands trembled during the entire trip, because suddenly everything might finally become clear. Michael placed his phone on the desk. She's expecting your call? I stared at the screen. For several seconds, I couldn't move. Finally, I picked up the phone. A woman's voice answered. Hello. She sounded older, gentle, tired. My name is Sage Ortiz. Silence, then, I know why you're calling. My heart stopped. You do. Is his name Ethan now? Tears immediately filled my eyes. My God, my God. Olivia covered her mouth. Michael lowered his head. I could barely speak. What was his name? Daniel. The room became completely silent. Margaret continued. He told me his wife had died. Exactly the same story. He said he worked in medical sales. Exactly the same job. He met me at a grief support group. Exactly the same place. My hands shook violently. How long? About 2 years. And then he moved in. The same pattern, the same steps, the same kindness, the same loneliness. I asked the question I feared most. Did he give you medication? Silence. Long silence. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. I started sleeping all the time. Tears rolled down my face. I forgot things. Olivia began crying. I thought I was getting dementia. My chest hurt so badly I could barely breathe. Margaret continued. He handled my money. Did he take it? Yes. My eyes closed. How much? Almost everything. The office remained silent except for her voice. I reported him. What happened? There wasn't enough evidence. My voice broke. Why didn't you tell anyone? She laughed softly, a painful laugh. Who would believe an old woman who couldn't remember things? The words shattered me. Because that had been me. Exactly me. She finally asked, Is he still with you? Yes. Please leave. The simplicity of those words terrified me. Please leave. When the call ended, nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. The truth sat in the room, heavy, undeniable, real. Ethan had done this before. He had chosen another widow, another lonely woman, another grieving heart. And now he had chosen me. For nearly an hour, I sat in Michael's office crying, not because of the money, not because of the lies, because of humiliation, because I had loved him, I had trusted him, I had defended him. Michael finally spoke. We need to contact the police. I nodded. Will they believe me? Yes. But you have medical records. Olivia squeezed my hand. You have Dr. Reed. Michael continued. You have financial documents. And now, he looked directly at me. You have a witness. The drive home felt unreal. The world outside continued normally. People shopped. Children played. Cars moved through traffic. Meanwhile, my entire marriage had collapsed in a single afternoon. When we arrived home, Ethan was sitting in the living room, waiting. He stood. Where were you? Nobody answered. He looked at me. Sage. I walked toward him. My hands were trembling, but something else had appeared. Anger, for the first time. Real anger. I spoke to Margaret. His face went white. Only for a second, but I saw it. He knew the name. Immediately. Who? Margaret Dawson. Silence. Absolute silence. His eyes moved toward Olivia, toward Michael, who had accompanied us, then back to me. I don't know who that is. She knows Daniel Harper. His breathing changed, very slightly, but enough. I think you should leave. The words came from me, not Olivia, not Michael, me. Ethan stared at me. This is my home. No. I shook my head. It's mine. His voice became cold. You don't understand what's happening. No. I looked directly into his eyes. For the first time, I do. The room remained silent. Finally, he smiled. That empty smile again. You believe strangers? I believe myself. And perhaps that was the sentence he never expected to hear. Because for months, he had worked to destroy exactly that. My confidence, my memory, my trust in my own mind. He picked up his coat. No shouting, no violence, no dramatic scene. Only one sentence. You'll regret this. He walked toward the front door. Then he stopped. Without turning around, he said quietly, "You have no idea what people become when they're desperate." The door closed. The house became silent, very silent. I sat down. My body was shaking. Olivia hugged me. Michael stood near the window. And for the first time in nearly a year, I felt something returning. Not safety. Not yet. Something smaller. Something fragile. Myself. But upstairs inside the bedroom we had shared remained his clothes, his documents, his computer, and perhaps answers we still hadn't found. Because even after Ethan left the house, one question remained. How much had he already taken from me? I did not sleep that night. Even though Ethan had left the house, his presence remained everywhere. His clothes still hung in the closet. His toothbrush sat beside mine. His coffee mug rested beside the sink. 14 months of marriage cannot disappear in a single afternoon. Neither can fear. Olivia slept in the guest room, but I remained awake in William's old recliner downstairs. The house was quiet except for the ticking clock above the fireplace. The same clock William had repaired dozens of times. The same clock Ethan had wound every Sunday. I stared at it until sunrise. Around 7 o'clock, Michael called. "The police want to speak with you." My stomach tightened. Today, yes. I looked toward the staircase, toward the bedroom where Ethan's belongings remained, toward the life that had suddenly become evidence. At the police station, the detective introduced himself as Detective Robert Hayes. He looked to be in his early 60s, patient, calm. He spoke softly. "Mrs. Ortiz, tell me everything." And for the first time, I told the entire story. The grief support group, the marriage, the medications, the fainting, the hospital, the note, the sedatives, Margaret, the financial documents. When I finished, the detective remained silent for several seconds. Then he asked, "Do you have access to his computer?" Olivia answered, "Yes." "Any financial records?" Michael nodded. "We've preserved everything." The detective wrote several notes. "Did he ever become violent?" I thought carefully. "No." "Threatening?" I remembered his words. "You'll regret this. You should be careful who you trust." I nodded slowly. "Yes." The detective leaned forward. "Mrs. Ortiz, these cases are difficult." My heart sank. "But not impossible." That afternoon, the detective accompanied us back to the house. Walking inside with a police officer felt surreal. This had been William's home, my home, the house where my children grew up. Now investigators were opening drawers, photographing documents, reviewing files. Inside Ethan's desk, they found copies of insurance paperwork, bank records, medication schedules, several documents concerning my finances. One folder carried my name. Simply, Sage. The detective opened it. Inside were medical notes, appointment dates, lists, observations. My blood ran cold. One page read, "Sleeping more." Another, "Memory worsening." Another, "Confused about finances." Another, "Needs help with decisions." I stared at the pages. He had been documenting me, studying me, tracking me, as though I were a patient or a project. Olivia began crying. The detective carefully turned another page, and then he stopped. The room became silent. "What is it?" I asked. He handed me the paper. My hands trembled. It was a list. At the top, power of attorney underneath bank, insurance, house, medical, retirement, every part of my life. Step by step. My knees weakened. Michael helped me sit down, because suddenly the entire picture became clear. This had never been impulsive. This had never been temporary. This had been planned, carefully, patiently, over months, perhaps over years. The detective spoke quietly. Mrs. Ortiz, I think you were being prepared for legal incompetence. Tears filled my eyes. He wanted control. The detective nodded. That evening, after everyone left, I sat alone in William's workshop. The sun was setting. Golden light entered through the windows. Dust floated through the air. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to feel something other than fear. Anger. Real anger. Not because Ethan lied, not because of the money, because he used my grief, my loneliness, the death of my husband. He had taken the most painful period of my life and turned it into an opportunity. Olivia entered quietly. She sat beside me. You okay? No? She nodded. Me neither. For several minutes, we simply sat together, mother and daughter. The distance between us had disappeared. Years of hurt, months of misunderstanding, all of it slowly fading. I should have listened. She took my hand. I should have tried harder. I smiled through tears. You tried. The next morning, the detective called. We located Ethan. My heart immediately began racing. Where? He checked into a motel. Is he leaving? We don't know. What happens now? We continue investigating. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call. Margaret, the woman from Ohio. I wanted to ask something. Anything. Do you still have his things? Yes. Look inside his books. I frowned. What books? He always kept one book beside the bed. I looked toward the staircase. Ethan's nightstand. The novel he never seemed to finish. After hanging up, Olivia and I went upstairs. The book remained exactly where he left it. Inside, we found an envelope. Cash. Several $1,000s. And another photograph. This one showed Ethan, or Daniel, standing beside another woman, an older woman, another widow, someone neither Margaret nor I recognized. My hands began shaking. How many women, how many lives, how many homes? At the bottom of the envelope sat a small key. No label, no explanation. That evening, Detective Hayes examined it. A storage unit, maybe. And suddenly, the story wasn't finished. Because if Ethan had done this before, if there were other women, if there were other identities, then perhaps the truth was much larger than any of us had imagined. That night, I finally entered my bedroom alone. I opened the closet. His clothes remained. His jackets, his shoes, his scent. I stood there for several minutes. Then I did something I never expected. I removed William's photograph from the dresser and placed it beside the bed again. Its original place, the place Ethan had gradually replaced. I sat down, touched the frame, and quietly said, I'm sorry. Not to Ethan, to William, to myself, to the woman who had become so lonely that she stopped trusting her own instincts. Outside, snow began falling again. The same snow that had fallen the day I collapsed. The same snow that had covered the hospital parking lot. But now, something had changed. The frightened woman who opened Dr. Reed's note no longer existed. Because for the first time in months, I believed my own mind. And somewhere in a motel room across town, Ethan Brooks, or Daniel Harper, was beginning to understand something he had never expected. I was no longer afraid of him. The first morning I woke up without Ethan in the house, I expected to feel relief. Instead, I felt grief. Not grief for the man he truly was, grief for the man I thought he had been. The man who sat beside me at church, the man who brought me yellow roses, the man who held my hand during lonely nights. That man had never existed, and somehow accepting that truth felt almost as painful as losing William. For several weeks, life moved slowly. Detective Hayes continued investigating. The storage unit connected to the key contained boxes of financial records, old identification documents, photographs, and files connected to other women. Some names led nowhere. Some women had passed away. One woman had moved to Arizona. Another had lost a substantial portion of her savings. The investigators could not prove every crime, but the pattern had become impossible to ignore. Ethan Brooks, Daniel Harper. Perhaps other names, other lives, other stories. Meanwhile, the legal process began. Michael helped me freeze accounts. The bank reversed several unauthorized transactions. The attempted refinancing of the house was officially canceled. Documents containing false medical claims were challenged. The forged authorizations became part of the investigation. Slowly, piece by piece, my life returned to me. My name, my accounts, my decisions, my voice. The first thing I changed was my will. William and I had written it together years earlier. Now Michael sat beside me while I signed new papers. No confusion, no pressure, no one speaking for me. When I finished signing, Michael smiled. "How does that feel?" I looked at my own signature. "It feels like mine." That simple sentence nearly made me cry, because for almost a year I had doubted my own mind, my own memory, my own handwriting, my own judgment, and now I was finally beginning to trust myself again. Olivia stayed with me for nearly 2 months. The house slowly changed. We cooked together. We watched old movies. The grandchildren visited every weekend. Laughter returned. The silence that once terrified me no longer felt empty. One afternoon, my granddaughter Emma sat beside me on the porch. "Grandma?" "Yes." "Are you better now?" Children ask difficult questions so simply. I looked at the backyard, the trees, the old bird feeder William built, the garden beginning to bloom. "I think I'm becoming better." She smiled. "Good." That spring, Dr. Natalie Reed invited me to speak to a support group for older women. At first, I refused. "I can't." "You can." "I'll fall apart." She smiled. "Then fall apart." I laughed for the first time in weeks. The meeting took place in the same community center where I had met Ethan. Walking inside nearly made me turn around. The chairs, the coffee table, the soft music. Everything felt familiar. Too familiar. But then I looked around. Widows. Divorced women. Women living alone. Women grieving. Women who looked exactly as I had looked. Lonely. Vulnerable. Invisible. I stood at the front of the room. My hands trembled. "My name is Sage Ortiz." Silence. I thought loneliness was the worst thing that could happen to me. Several women nodded. I was wrong. And then I told my story. Not every detail, not every fear, but enough. When I finished, nobody spoke immediately. Then one woman began crying. Another nodded. Another raised her hand. "My daughter worries about a man I'm seeing." Another said, "I've been forgetting things too." Another whispered, "I thought I was losing my mind." And suddenly I realized something. My story wasn't only mine. Many older women live with loneliness. Many fear becoming burdens. Many doubt themselves. Many believe they should be grateful simply because someone pays attention to them. I stayed for nearly 3 hours. When I left, several women hugged me. One said something I will never forget. "You gave me permission to trust myself." That summer, Olivia and I repainted the porch. William had always wanted it blue. We finally chose the color he liked. As we worked, she looked at me. "Do you regret meeting him?" I thought carefully, because the answer surprised me. "No." She looked confused. "Why?" "Because if I regret him, I regret surviving." She sat beside me. "I don't understand." I smiled. I was lonely. I looked toward the sunset. "I made a mistake because I wanted to be loved." Tears filled her eyes. "That's not a crime." "No." I took her hand, and neither is growing older. Months later, Detective Hayes called. They had enough evidence to move forward on several charges related to fraud and financial exploitation. Not every answer would come. Not every victim would receive justice. But some would. Including me. The night after the call, I sat alone on the porch. The same porch where Ethan had proposed. The same porch where William and I had spent countless evenings. The sky glowed orange. Birds settled into the trees. The wind moved softly through the yard. For the first time in years, I felt peaceful. Not because everything had been repaired, not because the pain had disappeared, but because I had finally stopped apologizing for my own instincts. The folded note from Dr. Reed remained inside my desk drawer. 3 words. Don't trust him. For months, I believed those words saved my life. But now I understand something else. The note only reminded me of what my heart had already begun to say. Because somewhere beneath the confusion, beneath the medications, beneath the fear, beneath the loneliness, a small voice inside me had never disappeared. The voice that said, "Something is wrong." The voice that said, "You are not losing your mind." The voice that said, "You deserve to be heard." That voice saved me. And now every morning when I drink my coffee alone on the porch, I thank 3 people: William, Olivia, and Dr. Natalie Reed, because they each helped me remember something that nobody should ever lose: the right to trust ourselves,